Dave.
Hello, 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 and welcome once again to Over Coffee, our morning talk show on the Long Island Tabletop Streaming Network, where we talk just about anything, including hopefully some games. And I'm here with Rich, Doug, John, and I'm Game Master Dave. So join us, watch us later on Twitch, watch us later on YouTube, or watch us live while you're getting ready for work or your day. Download the Twitch app on your phone. Or just go to twitch.tv/Long Island Tabletop. Well, you're there already. Also, well, just in case you saw us on YouTube later, you can go watch us live on Twitch. Today is Wednesday, the 3rd of March in the year of the Apocalypse Plus 2021. What's up, guys? Anything new since we last chatted on Monday? Doug, you had a great trip. Snowboarding or skiing in Vermont?
Yeah, I went snowboarding in Vermont. I'm wishing I was still there. Oh my God, it was gorgeous.
Yeah, a lot of cool photos on your Facebook I saw.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I haven't rode that well in years, probably. Probably when I was like a kid, and yeah, I can't wait to go. I'm going back again. Back up there the 19th, 20th, and 21st. This
Cool.
month. Yeah, so looking forward to that.
Cool. John and Rich, do you guys go skiing or snowboarding?
I'd like to snowboard. I don't ski. As a matter of fact, Doug and I were planning a trip a couple years back, and then Doug disappeared off the face of the planet, so that never went through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually took a trip to Planet Zur, and so legitimately I was kidnapped and they were doing anal probing. So realistically, Rich, I had the worst deal out of that one.
No, I'm not saying that you didn't have the worst deal out of that one. I was just turning around and just, pointing it out. But
well, we could go whenever you want, and I could hold your hand down the hill and teach you. It's fine.
That'd be interesting.
I'll be like,
you know what? I want, for no other reason than to just say that I've done it, want to go on the bunny slope just to do it. I really do. Actually, I've heard, and actually, I think I got this from Doug when we were talking about it. I heard that they do offer classes and stuff like that, like, little tutorials and lessons. And I think I would do that. Maybe I would take my daughter and do that with her.
Yeah, so you see a ton of kids on the slope, like with it. So what they do is they do class, like they'll do two options, right? You can do a private class, right, for yourself and your family together, right? Or you can do a group class. Obviously, it's a little cheaper, right? Because you're with a whole bunch of people. But you can still do it with your family, right? You can still do that, and they have like from beginner, intermediate to advanced expert, right? And beginners usually start off, if it's like their first time ever, they have a first timers class, and you start off on the bunny hill, and they teach you all of the basic fundamentals of just like stepping on the board, strapping the board in correctly so that you don't die going down the hill, things like that, right? So yeah, no, I would 1,000% recommend that, especially with your daughter. Like she if she enjoys anything in the winter, like sledding or anything like that, skiing or snowboarding would be definitely up her alley.
Yeah, I think I absolutely think that she probably would enjoy doing that. So all right, that's to answer your question. Yes, I would. I haven't. I would.
Well, next year when you're up in the Adirondack area in the boonies, somewhere, we'll just plan a quick day trip, take you up there.
Yeah,
sounds like a plan.
And John, how was World Salad on Monday night?
It's good. We had, after some minor technical problems, it was pretty good. We had a couple of people kind of hopping in and out of the show. Me and Jonah were kind of like tossing a lot of ideas back and forth, but ultimately had a good time.
Yeah, that was good. I listened to part of the show too. It was interesting. So, if you're not familiar with World Salad, I mean, maybe John can describe better. John, what's your show about on every other Monday night? What's it about?
Oh, it's a world building show. We pretty much come up with a couple of ideas, more like just general inspiration points of like talking about like, oh, we're going to talk about something that's sci-fi related. We're going to talk about something that has to do with NPCs, and then we kind of just kick around ideas from there. Although I'm thinking I might need to come up with more stuff to give us some more variety because we have a couple of different categories, but I feel we only have like 8 topics to talk about, and we end up hitting a lot of the same duplicates just out of random chance.
Oh, okay. And then tonight I got my show at 10 p.m. We'll be talking board games, and then tomorrow night, Thursday night is Doug's painting show, watching paint dry at 7:30. So that's Doug's shows every week. Mine is every week. John's is every other week. And last night I didn't get a chance to watch Marauder, but that's AJ's show every other week. So
We're
cool.
getting the plugs out of the way at the top of the show.
Yeah. Hey, look at it. It naturally worked that way. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the top of the hair plugs, not the bottom.
Should I cover the news real quick?
Yes.
Go for it.
Sounds good. From Tabletop Gaming News. Flat Out Games has followed up their smash hit Calico with Cascadia. I never played Calico, but have you guys heard of it even at all?
Nope.
Okay. Well, Cascadia is a puzzle tile laying game featuring the habitats and wildlife of the Pacific Northwest, designed by Randy Flynn with gorgeous artwork by Beth Sobel. Also, so check that out if you're interested. That's Cascadia. If you've played Calico, you might like it. Also from Tabletop Gaming News, Homebrewed Games. Yes, that's interesting. I thought that was a cool name of a company. Homebrewed Games, LLC, is looking to bring Druid players in 5th edition D&D a whole lot more options for when they build and upgrade their characters. They've created Druids, Secrets of the Primal Order, and will be launching it on Kickstarter soon. So watch for that if you're a Druid player for role-playing games, specifically, I guess, D&D 5th edition. Check for Druids, Secrets of the Primal Order. All right. Then from Tabletop Gaming News, also, you probably know that oh wait, this is somebody that wrote this. There's a lot of games with novel premises behind them. So actually the name of the game is So You've Been Eaten, end quote, certainly covers a new novel premise. Mining in space is a dangerous thing to do, and being swallowed whole is just an occupational hazard. But will you make it out alive? That's up to you to decide. And that game is on Kickstarter now. So it's called So You've Been Eaten. And I thought the idea was definitely interesting. I don't know if you play against the game system or if one person plays monsters on planets you're trying to mine. And the rest of the players, or all the players, if you play against the system, are miners. So you're competing to mine the best materials and trying to avoid being eaten. So I thought that was interesting.
So just see, that reminds me, like on Project Zomboid, which I've been playing a lot. It starts off. The game starts off by saying, "This is how you died," not right. I mean, that's how it starts. So the game is the story of how you die because inevitably you're gonna die.
Right. Okay. Interesting. That's a interesting concept.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna find out a little bit more about that. I'm opening my BoardGameGeek.com, and I'll fill you in on that. So You've Been Eaten thing in a second. And then lastly, I have from Dice Tower News. Hey, first. Skyrim the board game is coming from Mordifius Entertainment.
Yep.
So, yeah, I did not know that. I played Skyrim for about 7 minutes, and
Oh God, that's it?
I went into a town, and I was pressing buttons because I didn't know what to do, and I did the roar feature or something like that, whatever the roar, and everybody in the town attacked me and killed me.
Well, naturally, because you decided to do your Dragonborn abilities in the middle of the town. I mean, have you never heard of like anything? Come on, it's like taking a gun out in the middle of New York City.
I didn't know. I didn't know.
I mean, honestly, well, I got one for you. How about this? Here's some board game news for you.
John, we can hear background noise, just so you know.
Oh. So here's some cool board game news for you. So
yeah.
I don't know if you covered this on Monday or not, but Mythic Games announced Rainbow Six, the board game. Rainbow Six Siege, the board game.
Video games are porting over to board games.
Yeah, so Ubisoft licensed it to them. They're expecting this, I guess, on Kickstarter or actually maybe direct to consumer. I'm not 100% sure based on
Wow.
their teasing, but summer 2021. So we'll be seeing that. Looks pretty sweet. I'm saying. So I actually did look also into the Witcher board game, which you had mentioned a few weeks back as well.
Okay.
It looks amazing too. So my wallet's gonna hate me this year.
Wow. Oh, by the way, I got a little bit more on that. So You've Been Eaten. It's 1 to 2 players. So let's see if I can find a little bit more. That's crazy about Skyrim. So look at all these video games porting over to board games. It's pretty neat.
I'm very excited actually because first of all, huge Tom Clancy fan. I also played over 1,200 hours in Skyrim. So,
Wow.
yeah, but like the Skyrim board game, I think is coming from the same people who made the Skyrim 4 game. So
Okay.
it's kind of it's just them like reusing essentially their assets, which is good. Don't
Okay.
get me wrong. Totally,
Yeah.
I'm all about using it. You know, from a
Right.
business standpoint, it's always good, right?
All right, and that's all I got for the news. I'm gonna be switching over to my phone. So you guys want to chat about something? Go right ahead.
Let's talk about how Game Master Dave is switching over to his phone right now.
Yes.
I have a question. John, I have a question for you. It's a slippery slope question, and I just want to hear your opinion. So, you may or may not have heard of 2 additional books that will no longer be published from Dr. Seuss.
Oh man!
Right?
Oh man! Oh man!
I would like to hear.
It's 6 different books.
Well, there's right, but two more were added just recently, which is why it caught the news. Yes, it's a total of 6 books that will no longer be published by Dr. Seuss. And while I'm not going to say I understand their reasons for what they're trying to do. What I want to know is I want to hear your opinion on this type of action.
So what books? What book? Because like I haven't read it because every time I look at that clickbait article, I just get annoyed and scroll over it.
To be fair, like some of the ones that I've also like that you've talked about are ones that I've never even heard of. Like with Doctor, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like
Well, that's why this question is even more pertinent. You never read them.
Which books are there?
So it's and to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street, McElligot's Pool, If I Ran the Zoo, Scrambled Eggs Super, On Beyond Zebra, and The Cat's Quizzer.
Yeah.
Why are they wanting to pull them? What's the divisive elements about them?
So they specifically because yeah, right. I agree with Zinar. Then most of Mark Twain should not be published anymore. And believe me, there was a huge campaign against Mark Twain in the 80s about whether or not it should even be part of literature anymore. But the reason why I say 2 books instead of the 6, obviously the 6 are in the, but the okay, so in Mulberry Street, right? And to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street was problematic due to a Chinese character being depicted with chopsticks and a bowl of rice.
Oh gosh!
And then
Stereotypical Asian like characteristics as well, like the actual like the slanty eyes and all that stuff.
well, it's a Chinese character, I guess, but that's not what they called out as problematic. What they called out as problematic was that he had chopsticks and a bowl of rice.
For what? Like, is he from China? Like, is that like not typical Asian culture?
Well, it's so I don't know. But it is apparently it's an issue. It's a stereotypical issue. And then in If I Ran a Zoo, 2 African men were shown wearing nothing but grass skirts.
Okay, well that's a little.
Yeah, that's like
that's a little much. Sure, I can give him that. That's like really like, hey, we're from the sticks.
Maybe they were pulled because of low sales.
No, they were not.
Okay.
Here's what I would say. I mean, unfortunately,
Dr.
my
Seuss, the
opinion,
Dr. Seuss collection, Dr. Seuss was the second highest paying dead celebrity of 2020, by the way.
Jeez, now he's not. Now 2021 is going to be the lowest. Cancel culture at its finest. I mean, talking about this all the time. It gets so bad.
So the reason why I'm asking the question is this. Right, there's a fine line because it's also cultural. Not everyone uses forks and knives. That's absolutely that's correct, Zainar. So the reason why I ask the question is this. I'm not asking the question because there's talk is why were these books pulled as opposed to labeled with warnings, right?
Why were they just adjusted? Post like why couldn't they just remove the pictures? Like, geez.
I don't know. I mean, how I don't know. I haven't read the books. To John, these are not books that I've read. And I think, but I think what we're skipping over here is this is the slippery slope. Let me ask this question, John. Have you ever read the book 1984?
Oh gosh.
what was that?
Have you ever
When
read the
19
book 1984 by George Orwell?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
What?
Yes, but it's not. This is the context is very different. However, though,
Wait, hold on.
This is-
Let me explain that the context is. Let me explain why the context is not different. In '84, they physically went back and they changed history. I get that, but the where the context is the same is. Are we now, or is there going to be a group of academics and publishers that are going to review every piece of literature
and change history.
and do the same thing?
but it's not. But the context is different, though. The
No,
reason-
it's not. It's really not.
but it's Doug.
Yeah.
Dog.
Wait. Why is it different, John?
The point of 1984 was to control history as a means of population control and keeping people thinking under a certain means and ideas that worked best for the government. This is
Okay.
something people saying, look, we think that in this modern day and age, some of this imagery could be offensive and inappropriate. And so as a result, we just don't want it in schools. Not that we're going to, let's say, ban it outright or pretend that it never existed or claim that, oh no, the exact opposite. This is how all Africans are. It's like the context is two very different things. 1984 was a means of a oppressive government controlling the people by literally changing history so that whatever they said goes, versus people who are like, look, things are definitely dated and mindsets are different. Maybe this could be offensive, so we'd rather not have it. My approach, however, though,
John, real quick.
Wait, Doug. Wait, Doug. Wait.
the problem is my approach would be this, and it's
Okay, wait. Hold on, John. Wait. We don't want approaches yet.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear why you thought that wasn't the same. And Doug, why do you think it is the same? Because obviously that's where you're going.
Well, yeah. So I don't think that it's exactly the same, but I do agree with your slippery slope comment, right? So when the people start relinquishing this kind of thought to popular society, they allow that kind of open, shut kind of, hey, listen, you can control this as long as we don't want it, right? And then eventually it's you can control this, we may not want it. And then it's eventually you can control this, but we do want it, right? You're giving up, you're relinquishing your ability to have free thoughts be placed out there, regardless of how demeaning or detrimental they may be to other people, right? But our legacy of freedom of speech is going to be going out the window as soon as things like this start happening, right? So when you allow freedom of speech to be removed like that, when you allow to be like, oh, just because Dr. Seuss, a kid's book, in the most innocent of ways, placed a picture, an image, or a word in there that may be offensive to some, but is not offensive to others, or may be completely and utterly on the money with a depiction of a stereotype, but at the same time, was extremely innocent in its nature, you're removing that freedom of thought. And you're stating, hey, you know what? Since we're doing it to ourselves, hey, Mr. Government, or hey, Mr. Newscast, or hey, Mr. Publisher, you can do it to us on your own.
Right. So let me see. This is not uncommon, by the way. This type of behavior does lead to governmental regulation. By the
Okay.
way, John, this is how we got labels on CDs for content and labels on video games for content. It started as this type of thing and it spread. I'm not saying that this is going to do the same thing, but it is exactly how it happens. This is not the first time that we've attacked literature. There's been another time. Other people said that we should label these books as with insensitive material, and then you don't have to send them to schools. Dr. Seuss isn't published just for schools. They didn't make his money. They didn't make money. The publishing company didn't make money just because they gave it to schools, because they didn't. It was in regular bookstores. Listen, I'm okay with labeling it. We've already adjusted to the labeling society anyway, so that's okay. To not publish them, I don't know. Am I against this? Not overtly, but I think
Well,
that there's
well,
undertones here.
well, here's my point. Is if it's a private company, right? It's not a governmental owned company, right? Who publishes Dr. Seuss, right?
It is a private company. However,
Okay.
they didn't make it. It wasn't all internal. They worked with academics, and they worked with because there was pressure about insensitive materials in those books.
Okay. So then they're a private company, so they can make whatever internal decisions they want to. And if anybody is against that, then they can boycott that company, because the almighty dollar is what really drives company and culture in a way. So if people are upset at this, don't buy Dr. Seuss books anymore.
Yeah, but I think it's more than that. That's actually part of the problem, in my opinion, as well. Because now you're boycotting something very simple because of that. So now you're kind of going like off the deep end on the other spectrum, still allowing those controls to be.
Well, let me ask you a question. Why did you specifically ask John this question? You specifically started your inquiry saying, John, I have a question specifically for you.
Well, only because John and I have had some back and forth on this type of thing. I kind of knew where Doug was going to land on it, and you were transitioning. It wasn't a dig at John. I wanted to get John's opinion because John a lot of times has a different perspective than and I didn't want to taint it. I wanted to ask John outright. That's why I asked John. But let me address something that Zinar said in the chat, and then I'm going to address it to a bigger subject, because I think what Zinar said is actually right on point. Zinar says we have rampant racism, and we look for the dumbest things as the cause, and then point the blame at that. So where I'm going, and again, I appreciated John's opinion. That's why I told Doug to shut up, because I wanted to hear it. Right. And because sometimes we make connections that may or may not be there. So I wanted to understand why. I knew John was not going to agree with me, and I wanted to understand why. And there's nothing against it. I just wanted to hear it. That's why I asked him, Dave. So with Zinar's comment, there's a massive change of thought that needs to happen with changing with eliminating racism. I mean, the four of us were game store owners, and we don't think like that, right? But there's a world out there that does. And us being ignorant of that world is also partially part of the problem. My company for the whole thing of February, and I think they may continue it, they had sensitivity seminars, and they had speakers come in and talk about the issues and talk about the social justice movement. And a lot of them had some really good points. And it's not the points that we're hearing in the media. It's they were not saying the popular media points. And I think there's a problem, right? Because what they were saying makes a lot of sense. One person came on and said, look, we are asking everybody to give up some of their privilege so that we could get privilege. And the way he put it was so eloquent. It was like, okay, I've never seen it that way. I've never seen it put that way, that this person understands what's being asked of everybody else in, Zinar says in America, in our country, obviously you'd want it globally, but let's talk about what we're experiencing. And he's right. Right. He's right. But he shows that he understands that, and then now we need to understand what we need to do. So what I agree with Zinar is in the media is, do we need to go back and hit all of our books and our games and everything like that and just and have to go back through history and comb through it? Do we? These are 6 books that John said he never read. I never read any of them.
Can I make one or two points? If we're gonna what's the next? Like, my opinion is, what's the next step? Are they gonna start removing swastikas from books so that we don't see them anymore?
Well, look, we don't need to jump.
Hold on.
I know, but we don't have to jump the shark with that. But I understand what you're going. Go ahead, John.
Let me throw something out there that I was gonna say before, and then we kind of start talking about other stuff.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, John. By the way, I just wanted to do a round circle on that. Go ahead.
I'm personally fine with let's say the removal of the books or not having them around, but not with removing the conversation about the books. Like, if we want to say, look, rather than having these books as the original function of like, oh, it's just a kid's book or whatever, blah blah blah, why not use it as a way of like, we're going to look at how culture's been viewed throughout history, and how both that's a good thing and a bad thing, and how ideas have changed and how artists were shaped, not necessarily from a stem of racism, but just because that was culturally accepted at the time. Well, let's talk about how this could be inappropriate or how things have changed and where that might be in the future. Like, just reshape the conversation. So rather than saying, oh, anything that could be offensive is bad, anything that could be objectable is bad, it's like, no, look, there was the things were different. Things were different 20 years ago. Like, like opinions on gay marriage is drastically different now than it was just 20 years ago. That's an incredibly short amount of time. That's less time than The Simpsons has been on air.
You're thinking rationally. A group of people think irrationally.
But you're right, John.
I'm saying like that's how I would approach it.
Right.
Like, look, hey,
right.
These books can be offensive. Like,
yes.
Are they intended to be offensive? No. This was just a matter of how things were at the time. To be fair, some artists were intentionally that way, or weren't as aggressive as we might think. Like, even some popular artists, like you said, Mark Twain never came from a place of racism. He was just inspired by what was around him at the time.
But John, yeah, I mean, but I think that's where it starts, right? I think that the thing is, like, people are like, well, they may not think that they're offensive, but we have to adjust our thought process for the people we may think are offensive and remove them if we're going to move the people that were actually offensive, because you can't take one without the other in that case, right? And that's where they're starting. But like, I think that's the problem in general, is we should be accepting our history and owning it instead of censoring it, right? If we're censoring history, if we're censoring problems, the next step is censoring actual problems. And then, what's the typical saying? Those who don't learn about it are doomed to repeat it.
But the problem at the same time is not admitting that there were problems and just saying at the same time, no, everything should be allowed, because like, if we do start censoring ourselves and it's never going to stop, that's not a great.
I agree.
Because that basically says that's the opposite angle of like, no, slavery was bad, but we're over it. So we shouldn't have to worry about, teaching history from that angle, which was something that the last administration wanted to do, of like, let's just scrub history in the opposite direction because we're past this. And we're really not. Like, it's a huge part of where, how America's been influenced in policy and things that we've been dealing with for such a long time.
So what?
We need to think about it.
So I'm going to jump in here and add some closing comments while John brushes. Zinar says, to be fair, a lot of other countries have these same issues. They take a more rational approach. U.S. culture is a big part of the problem, in my humble opinion. So Zinar, that's a double-edged sword, because you're right. I understand. But the fact that other countries don't have the same levels of openness and freedom and abilities to do what we do and have this type of discussion and actually have this type of culture, good, bad, or indifferent, it's what comes with what we've developed here. I think John is right. I think John actually hit the nail on the head. Books shouldn't stop being published, but they should be used as a discussion point as to why they're insensitive. Why are they racist? You know, why were those pictures even why did the stereotype even arise? You know, if we don't educate as to why these things, they're going to come around again in different forms. So I'm with you. And the reason why we talked about it, and the reason why I talked about it here is because why it does affect games. Because if one publisher, you know, Dave, it's not as simple as just not buying that publisher's stuff. Because if one publisher moves forward with this, others will follow suit because they don't want to be left behind, saying that they have books that could have insensitive material in it, and it's a ripple effect.
Such as Curse of Strahd. Did you not see there's a huge movement for saying that the Barovian culture depicted in Curse of Strahd is anti whatever it is, gypsy or whatever, where they think it's like this racist culture. And there's this whole entire PDF on how to role play the Barovians that it's not offensive.
Well, again, it wasn't offensive by design, but it was highly stereotypical, and I think that's honestly the bigger issue. And maybe we say
it's a fictional land, John. It's a fictional land.
But it's highly based on like it's highly based on.
John, Dave's got to go. Sorry,
I gotta go.
We're at the end. We're at the end. David, take us home.
I didn't mean to interrupt, John. You guys can keep talking.
No. We're good. We're good. We're good. It was just a good topic because it was in the news.
Okay.
Take us home.
All right. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. Check us out again on Friday morning, 6:30, right here on Twitch, or watch us on the Long Island Tabletop YouTube channel later on. And thanks again, everybody, for checking us out. Thanks, Zainar, for chatting, and we'll see everybody soon. Don't forget my show tonight at 10 and watching Paint Dry tomorrow night at 7:30, right here on the same network. And good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.